My sister-in-law stole the names of all my miscarried babies and used them for her kids, then poisoned my prenatal vitamins to cause another miscarriage. She actually thinks I'm not going to ruin her life right now. Years I was infertile, but not just any infertile. I was the false hope infertile. You see, I had had 3 miscarriages, all in the second trimester. Luckily, everyone was really supportive, except for my sister-in-law, that is, because the first time I cried in her lap, she stroked my hair and told me she would always be there for me. She told me that when my niece, her baby, was born, I would be her godmother. I even started to consider her as one of my closest friends. Fast forward 2 weeks later to her baby shower. That's where she announced her baby's name. As soon as she said it, bile rose in my throat. It was Faye, the exact same name as my unborn daughter. Well, it's not like you were going to use it, was all she said when I confronted her, all while squealing like a pig being lit on fire. Her words felt like daggers. When my husband came over to ask what was going on, I told him. But instead of getting mad, he just laughed. Well, men can be pretty clueless sometimes. So I waited until we were in the car ride home to re-explain the situation. And my husband was the love of my life, but he was also passive due to growing up as the scapegoat of their family, the type to get robbed on the street and apologize for not having more money to give. That's just how she is, honey, he said with a sigh. So I told myself that at least my unborn daughter's name could live on in someone else's baby, and focused on increasing my fertility by being a healthy Pilates princess. But it never worked. A year and a half later, another baby died in my womb. A few weeks later, I was standing in an aisle of Walgreens when I saw it. My sister-in-law had made a post to commemorate her second son. The caption read, "Welcome baby James. Thanks to Emma, my name, for the name inspiration. Her loss is my gain." This was then followed by the pregnant emoji and the skull emoji. By the time she stole my third miscarriage's name, Charlotte, I was numb. She would send me nursery photos with captions like, "Bet you wish this could be for your Charlotte." My husband still defended her, saying I was being too sensitive about just names and photography. After 4 years I stopped hoping for a child. Sarah was pregnant with her 4th child, and made jokes at family dinners about which name she should steal next. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. That night, something in me snapped. If she wanted another name, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I waited until the next family gathering and broke down in tears. I told Sarah privately that I had discovered something incredible in my late mother's diary. A secret middle name she never told anyone. Lexativa. I said it meant sacred child in an ancient dialect. I even created fake diary pages and showed her a Pinterest board about honoring deceased grandparents through baby names. Sarah took the name and ran. She announced everywhere that she was naming her daughter Lexativa Rose to honor our family's hidden history. And this revenge plan was good enough for me. Until 8 months later, when the universe threw me a curveball. I was pregnant. Like 3rd trimester pregnant. I almost cried with joy. No more memorials. No more wondering whether there was something deeply wrong with me. Me and my husband had been waiting to announce it, not wanting to get our hopes up. And that same week, we got the text. It was Sarah inviting us to her baby shower. I wore a flowy dress that hid everything. My husband supported my decision, not giving an F anymore. Sarah had gone all out for this shower, bigger than any before. The whole family was there, plus her mommy blog followers who'd been following baby Lexativa's journey for months. Sarah was in the middle of giving her speech about discovering this sacred family name when I stood up. "Actually, Sarah, I have something to share too," I said, smoothing my dress over my now obvious bump. The room went dead silent. Sarah's mouth hung open mid-sentence. My mother-in-law dropped her champagne glass. 29 weeks today, I announced, cradling my belly. We wanted to be sure this time. The room erupted in screams and congratulations. Sarah's face drained of color. That's when my husband, the saint of the family, stood up and raised his hand. "Sarah, you were saying something about Lexativa? About all that research you did?" Sarah's face had gone from white to red. "Yes, it means sacred child in ancient—" "That's so weird," he interrupted, pulling out his phone. "Because when I Google Lexativa, all I get are medical websites about constipation relief." I had to hold my nose just to stop myself from laughing. The rest of the room was silent. I grabbed my husband's hand and walked out. It was a proud moment for all 3 of us. But I was fast asleep at 4 a.m. when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, one I had felt 3 times before. Me and my husband rushed to the hospital, but I already knew the truth. It was a miscarriage. Turns out one of my nighttime prenatal gummies had been swapped for something that was fatal to my baby. I instantly knew Sarah was behind it. I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's smug face at that baby shower. The police said they couldn't prove anything about the vitamins. The bottle had mysteriously disappeared from our bathroom, and the hospital couldn't detect what specific substance had caused the miscarriage. My husband finally stopped defending his sister. He sat on our bed, holding the empty vitamin bottle we'd found hidden in our trash can outside. His hands shook as he turned it over and over. Sarah had been in our house just 2 days before it happened, claiming she wanted to help organize the nursery. I started documenting everything. Every text, every social media post, every cruel comment Sarah had made over the years. My laptop became my constant companion as I pieced together a pattern I'd been too hurt to see before. 3 weeks after losing our baby, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Sarah's best friend Catherine worked at the pharmacy where I filled all my prescriptions. I remembered seeing them giggling together at family gatherings, Catherine always asking intrusive questions about my fertility treatments. I drove to the pharmacy during Catherine's shift. She saw me coming and tried to duck into the back room, but I cornered her near the vitamin aisle. Her face went white when I mentioned the prenatal vitamins. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her hands trembled as she straightened bottles on the shelf. That evening, Sarah posted on her mommy blog about toxic family members who make false accusations. Within hours, her followers were flooding my social media with hateful mess. Phone buzzed non-stop with notifications calling me jealous, delusional, attention-seeking. My husband deleted his social media accounts after his own sister's followers started attacking him too. We sat in our living room, curtains drawn, feeling like we were under siege. He kept apologizing for not believing me sooner, for all the years he'd let Sarah's behavior slide. The next family dinner was at Sarah's house. We almost didn't go, but my mother-in-law called my husband crying, begging us not to let this silly misunderstanding tear the family apart. Against my better judgment, we went. Sarah had strategically placed baby Lexativa's bassinet right in the center of the dining room. Every time I looked up from my plate, I saw that name embroidered on the blanket. Sarah kept making comments about how some people couldn't handle other people's happiness. During dinner, Sarah excused herself to feed the baby. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, screen still glowing. I don't know what possessed me, but I found myself walking toward it, pretending to get more water. The browser was open to her email. My heart pounded as I saw subject lines about fertility herbs and natural miscarriage remedies. I quickly pulled out my phone, hands shaking as I took photo after photo of the screen. "What are you doing?" Sarah's voice cut through the air like a knife. I spun around, phone still in my hand. She lunged for it, but I pulled back. We struggled in her kitchen, her nails digging into my wrist as she tried to grab my phone. "Give it to me," she hissed, but I held tight. My husband heard the commotion and rushed in. For the first time in his life, he saw his sister's mask completely off. Her face was twisted with rage, nothing like the sweet persona she usually wore. "She's trying to steal my phone." Sarah quickly switched tactics, tears suddenly appearing. "She's gone crazy, just like I told you all." But my husband had already seen the scratches on my wrist, the wild look in his sister's eyes. He stepped between us, and for once, he didn't take her side. "We're leaving," he said quietly, taking my hand. Sarah's tears dried instantly. "Fine. Run away like always, but everyone's going to know the truth about her." We drove home in silence, my wrist throbbing where she'd scratched me. I showed my husband the photos I'd managed to take. His face grew paler with each image. The next morning, Sarah's mommy blog featured a long post about dealing with mentally unstable family members. She claimed I'd attacked her in her own home, that I'd been faking my pregnancies for attention all along. She even posted a photo of herself with a small bruise on her arm, though I'd never touched her. Her followers ate it up. Comments poured in about how strong she was, how terrible it must be to have such a toxic sister-in-law. Some even started a hashtag, Justice for Sarah. My mother-in-law called within hours. "You need to apologize," she said, not even asking for my side of the story. "This has gone too far. Sarah's considering filing a restraining order." "She poisoned my baby!" I couldn't help but shout. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother-in-law snapped. "Sarah would never do something like that. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should get help." My husband took the phone from me. "Mom, you didn't see what happened. Sarah attacked Emma, not the other way around." "Oh, please," his mother scoffed. "You always take her side now." Sarah sent me the security footage from her kitchen. It clearly shows Emma snooping through her personal computer. My heart sank. Of course, Sarah had edited the footage to exclude our struggle, to make me look like the aggressor. My husband argued with his mother for a few more minutes before hanging up in frustration. Over the next few days, the situation escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Sarah filed a report with Child Protective Services, claiming I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be allowed to adopt children. She'd discovered we'd started the adoption process months ago, before our last pregnancy. The social worker who came to our house was professional, but clearly influenced by the concerns that had been raised. Apparently, Sarah's mommy blog followers had been calling the adoption agency, sending emails about my dangerous behavior. "We've received over 50 complaints," the social worker explained, flipping through her folder. "While we have to investigate all claims, I want you to know that organized campaigns like this usually indicate someone has an agenda. We provided character references, medical records showing my mental health was fine, everything we could think of, but the damage was done. The adoption agency put our application on hold pending the investigation." I sobbed in my husband's arms that night. Sarah hadn't just stolen my baby's names, she was trying to steal any chance I had at motherhood. The next morning brought fresh hell. Sarah had posted screenshots of my snooping on her laptop, conveniently cropping out everything that showed her research into miscarriage-inducing herbs. Her followers were calling me a criminal, demanding I be arrested for invasion of privacy. My husband and I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by printed emails from the adoption agency. Each one detailed another concerned citizen who'd contacted them about my supposed mental instability. The language was eerily similar across dozens of messages, clearly coordinated. Catherine called me that afternoon. Her voice shook as she whispered into the phone. "Meet me at the park on Elm Street. Come alone. I need to tell you something." My husband wanted to come with me, but I knew Catherine would bolt if she saw him. I found her sitting on a bench near the playground, nervously watching mothers push their children on swings. "I can't do this anymore," she said as soon as I sat down. "Sarah's gone too far. The vitamins, she made me switch them. Said it was just harmless herbs to help with your anxiety." My hands clenched into fists. "You knew what they were." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "She had dirt on me. I've been skimming pills from the pharmacy, just anxiety meds for myself, nothing serious. But she found out somehow and threatened to report me unless I helped her." I pulled out my phone to record, but Catherine grabbed my wrist. "No recordings. I'll deny everything if you try to use this against me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, and to warn you, she's not done." "What do you mean she's not done?" Catherine glanced around nervously. "She's been stealing your mail, has copies of all your adoption paperwork. She knows which agency you're using, who your caseworker is, everything." My blood ran cold. We'd been wondering why some of our mail seemed to go missing. Catherine stood to leave, but I grabbed her arm. "You have to tell someone. The police, the adoption agency, anyone." She yanked away from me. "I can't lose my job. I have kids too." She hurried away, leaving me alone on the bench. That evening, my husband installed security cameras around our house. We changed all our locks box and had our mail forwarded to a post office box. It felt like we were preparing for war. Sarah's next move came at Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family gathered at my mother-in-law's house, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah arrived late, making a grand entrance with all 4 of her children dressed in matching outfits. During dinner, she kept making pointed comments about people who can't let go of the past and the importance of mental health treatment. My husband's jaw clenched tighter with each jab, but he stayed silent. Then, as we were clearing dessert plates, Sarah stood up and clinked her wine glass. "I have an announcement." The room fell silent. Sarah's hand moved to her stomach in that familiar gesture I'd made so many times before. "We're expecting again, and I've already chosen the perfect name." My mother-in-law gasped with delight. "Oh, Sarah, how wonderful." "Yes," Sarah continued, her eyes locked on mine. "If it's a girl, we're naming her Margaret, after Emma's dear departed mother." The room spun. My mother had died just 6 months ago, her name the last sacred thing I had left. I stood so quickly my chair toppled backward. "You wouldn't dare," I whispered. Sarah's smile was pure venom. "Why not? It's such a beautiful name, and someone should use it since you clearly can't." My husband was on his feet now too. "That's enough, Sarah. You've crossed every line." "Have I?" Sarah's voice rose to a shriek. "She's the one who broke into my computer. She's the one spreading lies about me. I'm just trying to honor family traditions. By stealing the names of dead babies?" My husband's voice was deadly quiet. The room erupted. My father-in-law started shouting about keeping the peace. Sarah's husband looked confused, asking what was really going on. The children started crying. In the chaos, Sarah grabbed her phone and started live streaming to her mommy blog followers. "You can see how I'm being attacked in my own family," she said to the camera. "All because I want to honor my sister-in-law's mother." My husband grabbed my hand. "We're leaving." As we headed for the door, Sarah called out, "Oh, Emma, you might want to check with the adoption agency. I heard they received some very interesting information about your mental health history." We drove home in silence, both of us too angry to speak. When we got home, there was a message on our answering machine from our adoption caseworker, asking us to call urgently. My hands shook as I dialed the number. The caseworker's voice was carefully neutral as she explained that they'd received documentation, suggesting I'd been hospitalized for psychiatric issues multiple times. "That's not true," I said, my voice breaking. "I've never been hospitalized for anything except my miscarriages." "I understand," she said, "but we need to investigate these claims. Can you provide your complete medical history?" After I hung up, my husband found me sobbing on our bedroom floor. He held me as I cried, whispering promises that we'd fight this, that Sarah wouldn't win. The next day, we went to the hospital to request my medical records. The administrator pulled up my file, then frowned. "This is strange. There are entries here I don't recognize." My heart sank as she showed us the screen. Someone had added fake psychiatric admissions to my electronic records, complete with diagnoses of delusional disorder and pathological lying. "This is fraud," the administrator said. "We'll need to investigate how someone accessed our system." It took 2 weeks to get the fake entries removed and documented as fraudulent. During that time, Sarah escalated her campaign. She created fake social media accounts in my name, posting unhinged rants about wanting to steal other people's babies. She sent anonymous tips to my employer about my mental instability. My husband started recording everything. He bought a small camera he wore on his shirt, documenting every interaction with his family. His mother called him paranoid, but he didn't care anymore. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sarah's eldest daughter, Faye, now 8 years old, called our house one evening when her parents were out. "Aunt Emma," her small voice said, "I need to tell you something. Mommy makes us lie about you." My husband quickly started recording as Faye explained how her mother made her and her siblings tell people I was mean to them, that I scared them, that I said bad things about their family. "She practices with us," Faye said. "Makes us repeat the lies until we say them right. I don't want to anymore. You've never been mean to us." We saved the recording, adding it to our growing pile of evidence. But Sarah must have found out about Faye's call, because the next day she posted about how I was manipulating innocent children and turning them against their mother. Her followers were rabid, sending death threats to my social media accounts. Someone posted my work address, and protesters showed up at my office with signs calling me a baby killer and child predator. My boss called me into his office. "I know this is personal," he said, "but it's affecting the company. Maybe you should take some time off until this blows over." I was effectively suspended from my job. Sarah had managed to destroy my reputation, my career prospects, and my chance at adoption, but she wasn't satisfied yet. 2 weeks later, my husband's grandmother celebrated her 90th birthday. We debated not going, but his grandmother had always been kind to me, and I didn't want to disappoint her. The party was at a restaurant, neutral ground we thought would be safe. Sarah arrived late, as usual, making sure all eyes were on her. She air-kissed relatives and gushed about her pregnancy, now showing prominently. During the cake cutting, I excused myself to use the restroom. Sarah followed me in, checking the stalls to make sure we were alone before turning to face me. "You should just give up," she said conversationally, applying lipstick in the mirror. "You're never going to be a mother. The adoption agency has already rejected your application." "Oh, didn't you know? I have a friend who works there." I stayed silent, remembering my husband's camera was recording everything. Sarah continued, mistaking my silence for defeat. "It was so easy, really. Catherine at the pharmacy, my friend at the hospital who helped with your medical records, the social worker who owed me a favor. You never stood a chance." "Why?" I finally asked. "What did I ever do to you?" Sarah's reflection smiled at me. "You married him. You took my brother away from me. He was supposed to always put me first, and then you came along with your fertility sob story, and suddenly he cared more about you than me. So you unalived my babies?" Sarah laughed. "I didn't unalive anything. You did that all on your own. I just helped nature along with the last one. Consider it a favor. You're clearly not meant to be a mother." I left the bathroom without another word, my heart pounding. We finally had her confession on tape, but when my husband checked the camera that night, the battery battery had mysteriously died just before Sarah followed me into the bathroom. We had nothing. The next blow came from Sarah's husband, who called my husband asking to meet privately. We assumed he was going to threaten us, but instead, he looked exhausted and defeated. "I found her journal," he said, sliding a leather notebook across the table. "I wasn't snooping. It fell out of her purse. I think you need to see this." The journal was Sarah's, and it was damning. Page after page detailed her plans to destroy me, her glee at each miscarriage, her coordination with Catherine and others to sabotage my life. But most disturbing were the entries about other family members she'd targeted over the years. She'd poisoned her mother-in-law's cat because the woman had suggested she wait to have children. She'd sabotaged her cousin's wedding by sleeping with the groom. She'd gotten her college roommate expelled by planting substances in her dorm room. "I don't know who I married," Sarah's husband said, his voice broken. "The kids. I'm filing for divorce. I'll testify about what I found if you need me to." We photocopied every page of the journal before returning it. Finally, we had real evidence. But Sarah struck first. The next morning, police showed up at our door with a warrant. Someone had reported that we were dealing substances, and they needed to search our house. My husband and I stood in our living room, watching officers tear apart our carefully rebuilt life. They found nothing, of course, but the damage was done. Our neighbors watched from their windows as police cars lined our street. After the police left, we found a note tucked under our doormat. Sarah's handwriting: "Stop now, or next time they'll find something." That night, my husband and I made a decision. We would take everything we had to the family, force them to see the truth about Sarah once and for all. We called a family meeting at my mother-in-law's house, saying we had important news to share. Sarah arrived looking smug, probably thinking we were going to announce our surrender. Instead, my husband connected his laptop to the TV and began presenting our evidence. The journal entries, the photos from Sarah's computer, the testimony from her husband, even Faye's recorded confession about being forced to lie. The room was silent as the evidence mounted. Sarah's face went from smug to panicked to furious. When we showed the journal entry about her poisoning the cat, my mother-in-law gasped. "Whiskers didn't just die," she whispered. Sarah jumped to her feet. "This is all fake. They're trying to frame me because they're jealous of my perfect family." But her husband stood up too. "It's true. All of it. I've seen the original journal. Sarah, you need help." The dam broke. Other family members started sharing their own stories about Sarah's cruelty over the years. Her pattern of behavior became undeniable. Sarah's mask finally shattered completely. She screamed at everyone, calling them liars and traitors. She grabbed a vase and threw it at the wall, sending shattered glass across the room. "You want to destroy me?" she shrieked at me. "You barren witch. You'll never have what I have. Never." Her eldest son, James, started crying. "Mom, stop. You're scaring us." But Sarah was beyond reason. She lunged at me, and this time I didn't back down. My husband and hers had to pull us apart as she clawed at my face, screaming obscenities. "I should have used something stronger in those vitamins," she screamed. "I should have made sure you could never even try again." The room went completely still. Even Sarah seemed to realize what she'd just admitted. My father-in-law's voice was cold. "Get out of my house. Don't come back." Sarah looked around the room at her family, her children, her husband. All of them were looking at her with horror and disgust. "Fine," she spat, "but I'm taking my children." "No," her husband said firmly. "You're not. Kids, come here." All 4 children ran to their father, even baby Lexativa in Faye's arms. Sarah stood alone in the center of the room, finally seeing the consequences of her actions. She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. The family sat in stunned silence for a moment before my mother-in-law started crying. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, reaching for my hand. "I should have believed you. All those babies. I'm so sorry." The aftermath was swift. Catherine, terrified of losing her pharmacy license, came forward with a full confession about switching my vitamins. She provided receipts, text messages from Sarah, everything needed to prove what had happened. Sarah's husband filed for emergency custody and a restraining order. The divorce papers cited her journal as evidence of her being an unfit mother. He also shared that he'd found searches on her computer for how to induce miscarriage dating back years. Sarah's mommy blog imploded when someone leaked excerpts from her journal to her followers. The woman who'd built her brand on being the perfect mother was exposed as a calculating sociopath who'd poisoned family members and sabotaged pregnancies. Within days, she lost everything: her husband, her children, her family, her online following. The adoption agency called to apologize and reactivate our application, noting that the fraudulent complaints would actually strengthen our case by showing we could handle adversity. 3 months later, my husband and I stood in a courthouse, finalizing the adoption of newborn twins. We named them Charlotte and James, reclaiming the names Sarah had stolen. As we signed the papers, I thought about the long journey that had brought us here. Sarah was facing criminal charges for the vitamin tampering, though her lawyer was pushing for a plea deal involving mental health treatment instead of jail time. Her children were thriving with their father, finally free from their mother's toxic influence. Faye had started calling me Aunt Emma again, and she'd asked if she could help babysit the twins when they were older. "I want to be a good big cousin," she'd said, "not like my mom was a sister." As we drove home with our babies, my husband reached over and squeezed my hand. We'd survived Sarah's campaign of terror, and somehow we'd come out stronger. The twins gurgled in their car seats, and I smiled through my tears. Sarah had tried to steal everything from me, but in the end, she'd only stolen from herself. I had my family, my babies, my life back. And Sarah? She had exactly what she'd always given others: nothing but the consequences of her own cruelty. The courthouse adoption ceremony ended at noon. By 12:30, Sarah was already causing problems. My husband spotted her first, standing across the street from the courthouse steps where we were taking photos with Charlotte and James. She wore oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, but her rigid posture gave her away. "Don't look," he whispered, shifting to block her view of the twins. The photographer noticed our tension and suggested we move to the courthouse garden. As we walked away, I heard rapid footsteps behind us. Sarah had crossed the street. "Those should have been my names to give," she called out. Security intercepted her before she got close. We watched them escort her away while she shouted about her rights as an aunt. The twins slept through it all, unaware of the drama surrounding their first official day as ours. That afternoon, we discovered Sarah had been busier than we thought. Our adoption announcement on social media, posted by my mother-in-law with our permission, had been screenshot and reposted on Sarah's new blog with commentary about baby thieves and name stealers. Catherine texted me a warning. Sarah had been at the pharmacy that morning, asking strange questions about infant medications and allergies. Catherine had refused to give her any information and alerted her manager, but the encounter left everyone uneasy. We installed a doorbell camera that evening. My husband also changed our pediatrician to one across town, just to be safe. The twins needed their first checkup next week, and we weren't taking chances. Sarah's husband called the next day with disturbing news. She'd broken into his house while the kids were at school, taking photo albums and baby clothes. She'd also left a note demanding visitation with her children. "The restraining order covers the kids too," he assured us. "But she's getting desperate. She's been staying with different friends, telling them you've all turned against her for no reason." 3 days later, Sarah showed up at my husband's workplace. She'd waited in the parking garage, approaching him as he walked to his car. My husband immediately started recording on his phone. "You poisoned everyone against me," she said, blocking his path. "Even my own children won't talk to me." My husband tried to step around her, but she moved with him. "Sarah, you need to leave. You're violating the restraining order. That piece of paper means nothing. You're my brother. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me. You destroyed yourself," he said quietly. Sarah's face contorted. She grabbed his phone and threw it against the concrete wall. It shattered on impact. Then she ran to her car and sped away before security arrived. The broken phone meant we lost that recording, but the parking garage cameras caught everything. My husband filed a police report, and a warrant was issued for Sarah's arrest. She evaded police for a week. During that time, she created dozens of fake social media profiles, flooding our accounts and our employers' pages with accusations. She claimed we'd stolen her children, ruined her marriage, and planted evidence against her. One profile particularly stood out. It used photos of Charlotte and James from the courthouse, edited to include Sarah holding them. The captions claimed they were her twins that we'd kidnapped. Several of her old blog followers, still loyal despite everything, shared the posts. My boss called me back into his office. "I know this isn't your fault," he said, sliding a printed screenshot across his desk. "But HR is concerned. These accusations of kidnapping, even though they're false, they're affecting our workplace." I stared at the fabricated photo of Sarah with our twins. "What are you saying?" "Take extended leave. Paid. Let this situation resolve, then we'll reassess." I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, trying not to cry. Sarah had now cost me my active employment along with everything else. That night, Faye called again. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Aunt Emma, Mom's here. She's outside Dad's house. She keeps texting me to let her in." My husband immediately called his brother-in-law while I stayed on with Faye. We could hear Sarah pounding on the door, shouting for her children. "She says she has new vitamins for the baby," Faye whispered. "Special ones to make her smart like her." My blood ran cold. "Faye, don't open that door. Stay away from the windows." Police arrived within minutes. We listened over the phone as they arrested Sarah. She screamed the entire time about her rights as a mother, how we'd all conspired against her, how she just wanted to give her baby vitamins. They found a bottle of unmarked pills in her purse. Sarah spent 2 nights in jail before making bail. Her lawyer argued she was having a mental health crisis and needed treatment, not incarceration. The judge agreed to bail with conditions. She had to wear an ankle monitor and stay away from all family members. The pills tested positive for a mild sedative, nothing immediately dangerous but completely inappropriate for an infant. It was enough to add attempted child endangerment to her charges. Sarah's former friends began distancing themselves as more truth emerged. One of them, a woman named Patricia who'd been housing Sarah, called me directly. "I'm sorry," Patricia said. "I believed her stories about you, but then I caught her in my medicine cabinet at 3 a.m., going through my prescriptions. When I confronted her, she said she was just looking for aspirin, but you don't believe her," I finished. "No, and there's more. She's been using my computer to create those fake profiles. I have screenshots of everything." Patricia emailed us dozens of screenshots showing Sarah's activity, creating fake accounts, editing photos, coordinating harassment campaigns. It was all there, time-stamped and undeniable. We added it to our evidence file, which had grown thick enough to fill a banker's box. My husband organized everything chronologically, preparing for the criminal trial. Meanwhile, we focused on our new life with the twins. They were thriving, gaining weight, and starting to smile. Charlotte had my husband's eyes, while James had my stubborn chin. Every milestone felt like a victory Sarah couldn't steal. The adoption agency called with a follow-up visit. The social worker who came was the same one who'd investigated Sarah's false claims. She smiled when she saw how well the twins were doing. "I want to apologize again for the investigation," she said, watching Charlotte grip my finger. "It's clear now that those complaints were malicious. We understand you had to follow protocol," my husband said. "Yes, but I want you to know we've flagged Sarah's name in our system. If she ever tries to adopt or interfere with another adoption, we'll know immediately." It was a small comfort, but we'd take any protection we could get. Sarah's next move came through her lawyer. She was suing for grandparent rights, claiming we were alienating her from her rightful relationship with the twins. The lawsuit was baseless. She wasn't their biological grandmother and had no standing, but we still had to respond. Our lawyer laughed when he read the filing. "She's grasping at straws. No judge will even hear this case." He was right. The lawsuit was dismissed within a week, but Sarah didn't stop there. She started showing up at places she knew we'd be. The grocery store, the park, the pediatrician's office, always staying just far enough away to not violate the restraining order's distance requirement. present, but close enough to make her presence known. One afternoon at the park, she sat on a bench 50 feet away, staring at us the entire time. Other parents noticed and moved their children away from her. When a concerned mother asked if we knew her, I simply said she was someone we had a restraining order against. Word spread quickly through the playground. Sarah must have realized her tactics weren't working because she changed approach. She started sending letters to our house through her lawyer, claiming she wanted to reconcile. Each letter contained subtle threats wrapped in language of forgiveness and family healing. "I forgive you for turning my family against me," one letter read. "I'm willing to move past the lies you've spread if you'll just let me be part of the twins' lives. They need their aunt. Don't make me prove how much." We gave every letter to our lawyer and the police. The detective handling her case told us they were building a strong harassment case on top of the existing charges. Catherine reached out again, this time with more information. "Sarah's been texting me from different numbers," she said, "offering me money to get information about your prescriptions. I've blocked every number, but they keep coming." She forwarded us the screenshots. Sarah was offering increasingly large amounts, money we knew she didn't have since her husband had frozen their joint accounts during the divorce. The divorce proceedings were moving quickly. Sarah's husband had been granted full custody, and Sarah was only allowed supervised visitation at a court-appointed facility. According to him, she'd shown up to exactly one visit, spent the entire time telling the children how everyone was lying about her, and hadn't returned since. "The kids are in therapy," he told us during a coffee meeting. "Faye especially. She feels guilty for telling you about the lies. I keep explaining she did the right thing." We assured him we'd be happy to talk to Faye anytime she needed reassurance. The poor girl had been carrying the weight of her mother's manipulation for years. 2 months after the adoption, Sarah made her biggest mistake yet. She managed to get hired at a daycare center in the next town over, using her maiden name and somehow passing the background check before her charges were fully processed. We only found out because another mother recognized her from the mommy blog drama and alerted the daycare management. They fired her immediately and reported the incident to Child Protective Services. This violation of working with children while under investigation for child endangerment added another charge to her growing list. Her lawyer dropped her as a client, citing irreconcilable differences in legal strategy. Sarah represented herself at the next hearing. She showed up in an ill-fitting suit, her hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. She rambled for 20 minutes about conspiracy theories and family betrayal before the judge cut her off. "Ms. Sarah," the judge said sternly, "you need proper legal representation. I'm appointing you a public defender." "I don't need help," Sarah insisted. "I just need people to listen to the truth." "The truth according to whom?" the judge asked. "According to me. I'm the victim here." The judge scheduled another hearing and ordered Sarah to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. She stormed out of the courtroom, shouting about injustice. In the parking lot, she confronted us again. This time, my husband and I were ready. We both had our phones recording as she approached. "Enjoy them while you can," she hissed, gesturing toward the twins in their car seats. "You think you've won, but I know things. I know which formula you buy, which diapers you use, where you take them for walks." "Sarah, you're being recorded," my husband said calmly, "and you're violating the restraining order." She laughed, a sound devoid of sanity. "Restraining order? You mean that joke of a paper? I've violated it a dozen times. Following you is easy when you're so predictable." "Thank you for the confession," I said, ending the recording. Her face went white as she realized what she'd done. She turned and ran to her car, but court security was already approaching. They detained her until police arrived. This time, bail was revoked. Sarah would await trial from jail. The judge cited her confession of multiple restraining order violations and the escalating pattern of behavior as reasons for holding her. Her husband brought the kids to visit us the week after Sarah's incarceration. It was the first time they'd seen the twins in person. Faye was gentle and sweet with them, while James and the other children were curious but careful. "Mom's in jail?" little James asked his father. "Yes, buddy. She made some bad choices." "Is it our fault?" Charlotte asked, her 7-year-old face creased with worry. "No, sweetheart. Nothing Mom did is your fault. She's sick in her mind and needs help." The kids seemed to accept this explanation. They played with the twins' toys and helped feed them bottles. It was a glimpse of what family gatherings could have been like if Sarah hadn't poisoned everything with her jealousy. My mother-in-law came by later that week. She'd aged years in the past months, the stress of Sarah's actions weighing heavily on her. "I failed her somehow," she said, watching the twins sleep. "I must have. Normal people don't do what she did." "Mental illness doesn't mean you failed as a parent," my husband told her gently. "Sarah made choices. Bad ones. That's on her, not you." We spent the afternoon looking through old photo albums, pictures of Sarah as a child, smiling and seemingly normal. My mother-in-law pointed out moments she now recognized as warning signs. Sarah's rage when she didn't win a game, her manipulation of younger cousins, the mysterious illness of a classmate who'd struck her for class president. "I always made excuses," my mother-in-law admitted. "Said she was competitive, driven. I never wanted to see what was really there." The criminal trial was set for 6 months out. Sarah's public defender was trying to build an insanity defense, but the prosecutor felt confident. The evidence was overwhelming, from Catherine's testimony to the journal entries to Sarah's own recorded confessions. We settled into a new routine: park visits without looking over our shoulders, doctor appointments without fear of tampering, family dinners where Sarah's name rarely came up. The twins grew bigger every day, their personalities emerging. Charlotte was the serious one, studying everything with intense focus. James was all smiles and giggles, charming everyone he met. They were perfect, and they were ours, and Sarah couldn't touch them from behind bars. The daycare center where Sarah had briefly worked sent us a letter. They were implementing new background check procedures because of what happened. They also offered us free childcare if we ever needed it, their way of apologizing for the security lapse. We declined politely. The twins would stay with family or trusted friends when needed. Trust was earned slowly these days. Catherine sent a final text. "I'm moving. New job, new state. I need to start over where no one knows what I did. I'm sorry again. Take care of those babies. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. 5 months into Sarah's incarceration, we got unexpected news. She was pregnant. Apparently, she'd been seeing someone before her arrest, and now faced giving birth in prison. Her husband was devastated. Those kids don't deserve another sibling born into this mess, he said. And who knows what she took while pregnant. She wasn't stable. The pregnancy added another layer of complexity to the trial. Her lawyer pushed harder for the insanity defense, arguing no sane woman would commit crimes while pregnant. The prosecutor countered that Sarah's calculated actions showed clear premeditation, not insanity. We attended every pre-trial hearing, sitting quietly in the back, bearing witness. Sarah grew larger and more disheveled with each appearance. She'd stare at us with naked hatred, her hands cuffed over her expanding belly. During one hearing, she exploded. "They stole my life," she screamed, pointing at us. "My babies, my family, everything! And now they sit there judging me!" The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. As guards escorted her out, she turned back one more time. "Charlotte and James were supposed to be mine." The courtroom was silent after her outburst. Even her lawyer looked defeated. A month before trial, Sarah went into labor. The baby, a girl, was born healthy despite everyone's fears. Sarah named her Emma. My hands shook when I heard. Even now, even after everything, she was trying to hurt me, using my name for her child conceived in chaos and born in custody. Child Services took baby Emma immediately. Sarah had no rights to her, given her current situation and charges. The baby went to foster care while the state decided on permanent placement. Sarah's husband considered taking her but ultimately decided against it. "My kids have been through enough," he explained. "I can't bring home their half-sister as a constant reminder of their mother's breakdown." The trial began on a cold February morning. Charlotte and James were 11 months old, walking and babbling their first words. We left them with my father-in-law and took our seats in the courtroom. Sarah entered in shackles, her postpartum body shrouded in an orange jumpsuit. She'd lost weight since giving birth, her face gaunt and hollow. She found us immediately in the gallery, her stare unwavering. Catherine testified first, detailing how Sarah had blackmailed her into switching my vitamins. She broke down crying during cross-examination, but stuck to her story. The pharmacy had already revoked her license. This testimony was part of her plea deal. Sarah's husband went next, presenting the journal and describing years of manipulative behavior he'd been blind to. He shared stories of Sarah's escalating cruelty toward family members, her obsession with control, her inability to accept any perceived slight. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke clearly and calmly about the stolen names, the poisoned vitamins, the systematic destruction of my life. I showed photos of the twins, healthy and thriving despite Sarah's attempts to prevent their existence. "She wanted me to suffer," I said, meeting Sarah's gaze, "because I had something she couldn't control, her brother's love and loyalty." Sarah's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, suggesting I'd orchestrated everything to steal Sarah's life. But the evidence spoke louder than his theories. The prosecution presented everything: the emails, the fake social media accounts, the doctored medical records, the harassment campaign. They played recordings of Sarah's threats and confessions. They showed the jury the unmarked pills she'd brought to her children's house. Sarah testified on her own behalf against her lawyer's advice. She rambled about conspiracies and betrayal, claiming I'd been planning to destroy her from the day I met her brother. She insisted the vitamins were meant to help me, that the names were coincidences, that everyone was lying. "I'm a good mother," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. "They took my babies away because they're jealous of what I had." The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. He walked her through each piece of evidence, forcing her to confront her own words and actions. Sarah's story changed with each question, contradictions piling up. Finally, he asked, "Did you or did you not tamper with Emma's prenatal vitamins?" Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then quietly, "She didn't deserve to be a mother." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order while Sarah's lawyer put his head in his hands. She'd just confessed on the stand. Closing arguments were brief. The evidence was overwhelming, the confession damning. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Sarah showed no emotion as the verdict was read. She stared straight ahead, her face blank. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. We pushed past them without comment. There was nothing to say. Justice had been served, but it brought no joy. A family was shattered, children motherless, a baby girl named Emma growing up in foster care. The sentencing hearing was quieter. Sarah appeared medicated, her movements slow and deliberate. Character witnesses spoke on both sides. Her children didn't attend. The judge sentenced her to 15 years with possibility of parole in 7. She'd serve her time in a facility with a mental health program. It was more lenient than the prosecutor wanted, but harsher than her lawyer hoped. As guards led her away, Sarah turned one last time. "Take care of my Emma," she said softly. I didn't know if she meant me or the baby, maybe both, maybe neither. We drove home to our twins, who greeted us with smiles and outstretched arms. Charlotte had learned to say mama while we were gone. James demonstrated his new ability to stack blocks. That night, after the twins were asleep, my husband and I sat on our porch. The stars were bright, the air crisp. We didn't talk about the trial or Sarah or the years of pain. We just sat together, breathing in peace. 2 weeks later, we got a call from Child Services. Sarah's baby Emma needed a permanent placement. Would we consider adopting her? My husband and I looked at each other, then at our twins playing on the floor. Charlotte was trying to feed James a toy car while he giggled. They were so happy, so innocent. "We'll think about it," I told the social worker. That night, we talked for hours. Could we raise Sarah's child? Could we look at her every day and not see her mother? Could we deny an innocent baby a loving home because of who gave birth to her? In the end, love won. Baby Emma joined our family 3 months later. We kept her first name but gave her a new new middle name, Hope. Sarah's children visited often. They adored all three babies, especially Faye, who took her role as eldest cousin seriously. Their father started dating a kind woman who treated the kids well. Healing was slow but happening. My mother-in-law found peace in being a grandmother. She doted on all the children equally, making up for lost time. She never mentioned Sarah unless asked, and even then only briefly. She's getting help, was all she'd say. That's what matters now. I returned to work when the twins turned 2. My boss welcomed me back with a promotion, acknowledging how professionally I'd handled an impossible situation. My coworkers threw a small party, complete with baby photos on my desk. Life settled into a new normal. 3 children under 3 was chaos, but beautiful chaos. Emma grew to look nothing like her biological mother, all bright smiles and gentle nature. The twins accepted her as their sister without question. We told them the truth in age-appropriate ways as they grew, about families being complicated, about mental illness, about choosing love over hate, about how sometimes people who should love you can't, but that doesn't mean you're unlovable. Catherine wrote once, a long letter of apology and updates on her new life. She was in therapy, working at a hospital, trying to make amends for her choices. I wrote back once, wishing her well. Some forgiveness takes time. Sarah's husband remarried when his youngest turned 10. The wedding was small but joyful. All 4 kids were in the wedding party, beaming with happiness. They'd found stability again. We received occasional updates about Sarah from her lawyer. She was taking her medication, attending therapy, working in the prison library. She'd found religion, then lost it, then found it again. She wrote letters to her children that her ex-husband saved unopened, waiting for them to decide if they wanted to read them someday. She never wrote to us. We were grateful for that. On the twins' 5th birthday, we threw a big party. All the cousins came, along with school friends and neighbors. Faye, now a teenager, helped organize games. Sarah's other children sang happy birthday with genuine joy. Baby Emma, now 3, tried to blow out her siblings' candles. Charlotte stopped her gently while James laughed. They were so patient with their little sister, protective and loving. My husband's grandmother, now 95, sat in her wheelchair beaming. She'd lived to see her family heal from the fractures Sarah had caused. She held baby Emma on her lap, whispering stories about the family's history, the good parts. That night, after cake and presents and too much excitement, we tucked 3 exhausted children into bed. Charlotte insisted on one more story. James wanted extra cuddles, and Emma needed her special blanket arranged just right. As I closed Emma's door, I thought about Sarah in her cell. Did she think about the children she'd lost through her own actions? Did she regret the path she'd chosen? Did she ever accept responsibility? I'd never know, and that was okay. Her journey was hers alone now. My husband found me in the hallway, pulling me into a hug. We'd survived the impossible and built something beautiful from the ashes. Our children were happy, healthy, loved. That was what mattered. The next morning brought the usual chaos. Spilled cereal, lost shoes, arguments over toys, normal family life. Charlotte helped Emma find her favorite dress while James fed the dog breakfast. They were good kids, kind kids, despite or perhaps because of their origin story. My phone buzzed with a text from Faye. Can I babysit this weekend? I want to practice for when I have kids someday. I smiled, typing back yes. The cycle of family continued, healthier now, built on truth and choice rather than manipulation and pain. Sarah had tried to destroy us with her jealousy and cruelty. Instead, she'd created a larger, stronger family united by love and resilience. Her biological children thrived without her poison. Her baby grew surrounded by the love she'd tried to deny others. And us? We had everything she'd wanted, not because we'd stolen it, but because we'd earned it through patience, perseverance, and the choice to love even when it hurt. The twins started kindergarten that fall. Charlotte organized her supplies with military precision, while James charmed his teacher within minutes. Emma watched them leave with tears, counting the days until she could join them. We stood at the bus stop, 3 parents waving goodbye. My husband squeezed my hand as the bus pulled away. We'd made it. Despite everything, we'd made it. That afternoon, while Emma napped, I finally opened the box I'd kept in our closet. Inside were the ultrasound photos of our lost babies, the ones whose names Sarah had stolen. I looked at each one, remembering the hope and heartbreak they represented. Then I added new photos. Charlotte, James, and Emma playing together. Life from loss, joy from sorrow, family from the ashes of another's destruction. I closed the box and put it away. The past was honored but not dwelt upon. The present demanded too much attention, too much love, too much life to waste time on what might have been. Downstairs, Emma was awake, calling for snacks. I headed down to meet her, ready for whatever came next. We'd survived Sarah's worst. Everything else was just life. Messy, beautiful, ordinary life. And that was more than enough.